In this video, I'm going to be talking about time zones and handling time zones in Bubble. And to get us going, I'm going to show you how to use a plugin to store a user's UTC offset. As often it can be helpful to turn a user's time and date into a UTC time and date. So here's a registration workflow ready to go, and I want to store the user's UTC offset when they create an account. So first of all, I need to add in a Timezone plugin. There are several here. I've probably tried most of them, but for the purposes of this demonstration, let's use browser, Timezone, and locale. Okay, and I have to then add the element onto the page in order to be able to reference it. So I'm using the new responsive engine here, and a lot of these elements that have to be added to the page, I find that the best workaround is to put it somewhere barely noticeable and then set the height to just 1 pixel, and then it doesn't really mess up your design. So let's just see what values we can get from this plugin. So I'm going to reference the plugin. Oh, it looks like I've got more than one on the page. That's not going to plan. There's one up there. Let's delete that. I think the responsive engine was being just a little bit buggy at that point, which means that I will have timezone B in here. Perfect. So let's go back to my text, and I'm going to be referencing timezone locale B. So let's have a look at the timezone ID, and then let's also print the browser offset in minutes. This is going to help me unpack quite a few things I've learned with using time zones in Bubble. One thing I've learned is that some countries have time zones that aren't, say, on the hour. So when I'm converting time and date values, it's really helpful to use minutes or even seconds as your measurement of offset rather than hours, because some time zones are a fraction of the hour. Let's have a preview of how this looks and what data it pulls in. So I'm in the UK. We're currently in British summertime, which is a UTC offset of 60 minutes. So there we go, that's worked. And so now I can add in my registration workflow. So account, sign user up. I don't think I've labeled my fields very clearly. Nope, I haven't. So here we go. Let's tidy this up. Email, password, name. We think that it's important to keep in the videos some of these mistakes, just in case there's someone looking for just the right fix, and we cover it when we accidentally find that something doesn't work. Okay, and then I need to create a new field. I'm going to call this UTC offset minutes. Again, using time zones, I find, and we're going to make it number because we want to be able to do maths with it. I find really clear labels helpful because, if you're trying to do like a Calendly clone or anything to do with booking, if you have to handle user time zones, my perspective is that it is currently the trickiest thing to do with Bubble. Not impossible, but in an application that has anything to do with time zones, I would say that the time zone aspect is likely to be the thing that will take the longest, at least in my experience. So here we go, offset in minutes. And fresh. Okay, so I know that workflow is going to now create a user using these details, and it will save the UTC offset. Now, here's my list of why working with time zones is a real pain. First point is that using a plugin like the browser Timezone Locale or anything that automatically extracts the time zone from the user's browser, that can be wrong. And with the rise of more privacy-conscious web browsers, this can be deliberately obscured to hide the user's location. So in a recent app I was making for a client, I had a drop-down which used a plugin like this to have a good guess, which can be fairly reliable, good guess at the user's time zone, and place that value in a drop-down, but the drop-down allowed the user to override that value, and that's because it was critical to the application that we had an accurate time zone. The other thing to bear in mind with using time zones is that if you yourself are viewing a page in Bubble and you've printed a current date time and you've manipulated that value, or you're using it in a workflow, that is going to be adjusted for you, the current user, and your time zone. So even though we can use the offset to move values back into UTC, you're still going to view them plus or minus whatever your value of UTC is. That is very frustrating. Finally, a user's UTC offset can change. For example, in the UK, where I am, twice a year, once in the spring and once in the autumn, we move from UTC minus 60 minutes to UTC 0. So there's a flaw in the plan here, potentially, of taking a user's browser's time zone UTC offset when they register, because anything from a week later to 6 months later, their UTC offset might not be the same. These are all things that you end up discovering that you have to consider when you are working with time zones in Bubble.